Hi, everybody. Today is July 2nd, and this is the Pipeline Podcast. Today, we're doing our long form episode, like our actual podcast. It's not going to be just like a shorter update on like a current event. It's going to be more of a deep dive, even though we are covering like a few topics today. Some of them are like current events, like we're going to go over the Diddy trial at the end of the episode, just talk about his convictions there. And then we got some conspiracy stuff. We got some RFK vaccine news that was pretty recent. He was on a podcast with Tucker talking about that. We're going to go over it, and we're going to start with an Epstein update. So get excited. If you want to see these episodes live, check us out on Twitch at 4 p.m. every Wednesday. And you can kind of comment, follow along with us. Maybe you have another hot take on something we're going over that we're not aware of, and we definitely want to be aware of all the information so we can cover things as best as possible. So follow along and check out the Twitch. If that's not your thing, then you know what to do. Watch the YouTube videos. They're just as good. They're edited. So it's just a lot more. It's right to the point, these videos. And let's get into our first story tonight. So we have title here, Epstein survivor says Epstein is a lizard man. We've gone over some of these types of videos in the past already. The last one we did, what was it? We did some kind of crazy Epstein video. It was like one of the Epstein victims that ended up dying had like a dead man's trigger and released some audio voice that we covered. That was fun. No other updates from that have been released, so I'm 99% sure it was a fake video. This video, who knows if it's real or not, and if it is real, who knows if what she's saying is real, but either way, it's juicy. So we're going to look into it. We're going to start with this video here.
Charles, there's a lot of weird stuff around all of that.
Yeah.
But sorry, what was the other question?
No, so
sorry,
his
I
death.
jumped there.
I mean, did you find all of that suspicious?
Yeah, well, it was just, it was just very, very, just what was going on. It was just very weird, and also in New Mexico, I saw like a UFO in the sky there. And that's when Michael Bay was there at the same time. And then I also have a memory where I woke up in a lab, was paralyzed on a table, naked, with people with 6 people in hazmat suits standing around me and a doctor and then she said, don't worry, everything's okay. And I was out again. And I've never had anesthetic as far as I know, so I don't really know how that works. But, a friend of mine said that with anesthetic, you can have weird like we spoke about. And, it's,
so I guess just let's talk about that first clip there. They're like asking her if she found anything suspicious about his death. She doesn't really elaborate on that, but she just talks about some of these memories she has while she was being abused by Epstein and like all the people. And she's saying like she saw Michael Bay, and at the same time she saw a UFO. She saw people like with hazmat suits like doing stuff to her. Do whatever you want with that information, just to kind of break it down. Like, it's probably just like a hallucination on her part. And so keep that in mind when you listen to like other things that she says.
Like we spoke about. And, it's a very difficult thing to explain because, a lot of people like wouldn't understand it, but it happened. He turned into something in front of my eyes. And, and people question it and say, was I maybe drugged or something? I mean, I don't know. But the thing is, I do know that I've like experimented with drugs years later, and I never ever saw anyone turn into anything ever. I obviously don't do drugs, but from the times when I slipped up and did them as a young person being stupid, but I wasn't doing any drugs there. We weren't allowed to do drugs. We weren't allowed, I'd never touched drugs. I'd actually never done a drug when I saw that. I'd maybe smoked a joint. Well, I definitely had smoked a joint, but I'd never ever touched any drug by that point in my life. And I think if I'd been drugged, I would have actually been aware of it because I would have felt weird. Another weird thing is I've seen on the one documentary that Lisa Bryant made, I saw myself walking in the background and it almost creeped me out because it almost looks like I'm sort of floating. Because it's like, the thing is with hypnosis and cults, what I'm starting to realize is this was more like a sort of culty thing. Yeah. Where he was trying to get hold of people, and I think that's why a lot of people won't come forward because a lot of people might have been benefiting. It was a place where you didn't come out feeling normal. to be after being around them. And I can't really explain it because, I don't have the intelligence or the background, but, there's some very, very clever people out there who understand things like this that would be able to understand like what was going on. But it was just very, very frightening being around them. And I don't think I was drugged. When I saw him shift, I saw that. And I don't know if I was drugged, but I did see him turn into something, and it was very much there. And it was very frightening. It sort of shook my whole perception of reality and everything. And it's something I couldn't even speak about at the time because I couldn't tell my mum more about what had happened there. And it's just something I talk about, but it's something that I very much saw.
Yeah, so right there, that was kind of what the title of this video was talking about. She just says like she saw Epstein like turn into a butterfly or something, or a lizard man. She saw him like transform, and she didn't think she was tripping, which is fun stuff. Another interesting thing, something else that she said that stuck out to me, where she saw herself in a documentary about Epstein, and she said that the way she was walking, she looked like she was floating. So it makes me think that maybe like she was drugged, but she just wasn't aware that she was drugged, because she even says there like when she saw the way that she was walking, like it seemed off to her. So that's interesting to me.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I would say, is that it could be correct. Like, she could actually be like a victim, and that she could have just been drugged up and not really sure what she saw. Conversely, she could just be crazy.
Yeah, and like being a victim of something like this will probably make you go crazy. Like she probably has a hard time like believing everything she thought she knew like ever. Her whole mind must just be blown, because this whole Epstein case is like the biggest, most juiciest like conspiracy nowadays. Super fun stuff. And I guess my take on is I don't think Epstein turned into a lizard man, but I do think she has trouble, like maybe the memories are suppressed, and like that's how she like pictures Epstein as like an evil lizard man, like in her mind. That's kind of my take on it. So this is related.
That's what I think.
Yeah, that's what I think. Yeah. Here's another source on Epstein. So it is from a different accuser. It's not the same lady here. It's another lady called Maria Farmer. I have a picture of her. It's this lady here. Just back in May, a couple months ago, filed a lawsuit against the federal government alleging that it failed to protect her and other victims of Ghislaine Maxwell. So I guess the lawsuit is kind of like, hey, like the victims came forward, but she's alleging like they're being harassed or even like killed or silenced, all these victims, and that's what the lawsuit is over. So it accuses the FBI of negligence and negligent infliction of emotional distress. According to the lawsuit, Farmer first reported to the FBI that she was sexually assaulted by the pair in 1996 and warned that they had committed multiple serious sex crimes against girls, including her sister. So that is interesting. We might have to look into that. I don't know if we'll do it today, but if there's anything that proves that she actually did submit evidence, like, or the claim to the FBI in 1996, because is it really possible the FBI has known about Epstein for that long? It's very possible, and that should concern you. She also allegedly told the FBI that Epstein stole nude and partially nude photos of two of her minor sisters who were transported across state lines, and that he engaged in possession, production, and distribution of, CP.
Which Pam Bondi says there's tens of thousands of videos of that.
Yeah, that could be exactly what. I mean, they could be the same thing. Those videos that Bonnie's talking about could be what Farmer's talking about here.
Sure.
So maybe because of this trial, we actually get to see them. That would be great, but that's a stretch. Yeah. Farmer reported these allegations to the FBI again in 2006. Says that the FBI is a mandatory reporter of child abuse and exploitation. And so I guess maybe if she proves that she did submit evidence, or she did submit the claim to the FBI in 1996, and they didn't do a proper investigation into it, they could be sued for that. It's a violation of mandatory obligations under regulations and DOJ policies. to choose to do absolutely nothing. So that is interesting. I kind of feel like that's a pretty strong lawsuit. So basically, the lawsuit is saying that she reported Epstein to the FBI in 1996, and as the FBI, they're a mandatory reporter of like child abuse, and they didn't do anything for 10 years. And so that I think that's what the lawsuit's over. But maybe in 1996, the FBI like originally looked into it. Maybe there wasn't enough evidence in 1996, like not enough people came forward or something. That could be like their defense, and that might be a good enough defense to win the case.
Yeah, that's true.
Farmer and her attorneys allege that an FBI agent she was speaking to hung up on her, and that no one at the agency followed up. So I kind of believe that's true. Like back in 1996, it was a very different time. People didn't take allegations like this seriously as often. I could believe that happened. That the FBI said, "Shut up, kid," and just hung up on her.
Yeah, I can believe that for sure.
Yeah. As a result, Epstein and others working with him were able to threaten bodily harm to Maria and her family for decades, forcing her to relocate many times and change her name. In the meantime, Epstein multiplied his abuse and trafficked more girls. And in a statement, Farmer said, "It is time for the FBI and the U.S. Attorney's Office to address their grotesque failures regarding Epstein and to finally deliver the transparency and accountability that the victims and American public deserve." So yeah, I can get behind that.
Absolutely. Too bad nothing comes of it.
Yeah, this isn't the kind of case that FBI and the U.S. Attorney's Office like really want to go into. I feel like with Epstein, there was like a lot of other like powerful people that are implicated in this kind of stuff, and it's just kind of like it's like a pressure cooker. Like once you open it, it will just blow up.
Yeah, the floodgates will open.
Yeah, the U.S. Attorney's Office does not want to open the floodgates to Epstein. They do not want to do it.
No.
The FBI declined to comment on the lawsuit because it's standard practice not to comment on litigation. Yeah, fair. In a 2019 lawsuit, Farmer said she first met Epstein and Maxwell when she was an art school graduate in New York, and they wanted to support her budding career. Okay, this is just some backstory. If you want backstory on this lady, you could just do it in a different video. We're not going to cover that here. Okay, here we go. This is interesting. In her most recent lawsuit, Farmer shared a 1997 journal entry in which she wrote that she reported Epstein and Maxwell to the FBI. So she actually does have some evidence that she did do this. She wrote it down in her journal in 1997, which judges do consider that kind of stuff when they are like trying to decide like if a claim is true or not. And if they see something that's like, oh yeah, like here's her stating what she's stating right now, but she stated it also in 1997. Like it adds more credibility to her claim that she did call the FBI. You know, that might end up being like a very big piece of evidence. And I'm sure it will get disputed by the FBI. So the notes reveal that Maria reported Epstein to the NYPD, and the NYPD advised her to contact the FBI. Farmer allegedly wrote to the FBI, U.S. Attorney, and Inspector General in 2023, asking them to investigate the FBI's negligence, but her request was disregarded and ignored. Okay, so yeah, this lawsuit's kind of a follow-up to that 2023 like letter. The U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York and the Justice Department did not immediately respond to requests for comment. She also claimed that Epstein and Maxwell threatened that if she spoke out again, they would find out and hurt her and her sisters. So they like threatened her to like not go public. And that's why she ended up moving and used a fake name for a while. And so she's asking for compensation in an amount determined at trial. I love that.
Of course.
Yeah. And the government should be held responsible for what happened to her and other victims, because the U.S. violated the Federal Tort Claims Act, which allows people to sue the government for damages caused by negligence of their employees. Had the federal government done their job, hundreds of victims would have been spared. So yeah, that could be true if they would have. Yeah. Like if they would have taken her claim seriously in the beginning, it wouldn't have gone on as long. So yeah, there would have been less victims. That's
Or
that's
if they
true.
would have prosecuted him when he first started doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Instead of just letting him go and continue.
Hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. So
Don't forget, Epstein was convicted and sentenced back in 2008, 2009, and he was still able to continue to do what he was doing. So regardless of who and where, someone somewhere in the U.S. justice system is favorable to Epstein, the Mossad agent.
absolutely, probably one of his buddies.
Probably one of the many people getting paid by APAC.
So that's the article. We do have some comments because this is Yahoo News, so these comments are going to be kind of funny. So we got one here. It's just saying Trump released the Epstein files. I agree. Hurry up with that. Then we got a video here, Epstein and Trump chit chat, and we've covered this video before. Nothing new, nothing really too crazy either. This guy's saying we need tort reform in this country, reduce lawyer fees to 15% cap. So maybe they're saying that this is just a lawsuit so the lawyers can get a big payday. Yeah, who knows?
Yeah, who said that?
Oh, this guy Paul. Paul said it on Yahoo News.
Wait,
Yeah, it's just a
Paul.
comment. And then we
Fucking
have,
Paul.
if they haven't released the files yet, then they won't. Don't ever expect the powers of the world to turn on their own. At least it didn't happen at Boeing. So yeah. So this guy Scott here on Yahoo News is pretty woke.
Pretty woke.
Yeah. And I kind of disagree though. If they haven't released the files yet, then they won't. I think that they will release more in due time, but it's not going to be everything. I don't think they can possibly release everything because then they would be distributing CP. You can't release a lot of these videos if they're like with underage, like women, kids.
No.
Yeah, the FBI is never going to release that kind of stuff. But I think we'll get something. I don't know when, but hopefully soon. So yeah, that's a little update on Maria Farmer, which is a different lady than this lady in the video, the first video we watched. Keep that in mind. And it's a different Epstein victim. They're not the same. And Maria Farmer makes some artwork. So I just pulled up a source of this artwork that she made here, and we can kind of put on our artist outfits and pretend we're artists talking about this painting or whatever, this drawing, and we'll kind of analyze it. We'll go into it.
Pretend that we're artists.
All you got to do to be an artist is say you're an artist. So we're artists right now, and we're going to tell you if this is a good painting or not. Critiquing Epstein artwork is like, I don't know, art history counts.
Counts.
What I want to talk about here is the similarities that we see in this painting compared to what this first lady here described her memories of like she's seeing aliens, she's seen Epstein turn into a lizard man, something about like butterflies as well. Like she's her memories of Epstein are like, to her they seem like she's hallucinating, even though when she was with Epstein at the time, she never noticed that she was on drugs. And then we look at this painting here by a different victim, and we do see similarities. They're kind of expressing similar things. Here we got like a UFO, which the other lady was talking about as well. Kind of do have like a lizard person here, like eating the head of like a dude. That's super fun. I think we see Donald Trump here standing on a mushroom, which is a very interesting image.
This image is just very interesting.
It is. And we see here, like the bottom of the image, it's kind of like all the stuff that's like underground, where I guess she's just trying to say like there's a lot more that will come to the surface in this Epstein case. Like if more information comes out, she calls it the sea tiles. I'm not familiar with what that is. Might actually Google it.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that is.
The sea tiles. It's a location in Spain. Oh, I think it's a painting, or I don't know, but it's worth looking into. It's something. It has something to do with this painting. But yeah, it looks like it is a city in Spain.
Interesting. I know about a lot of cities in Spain. Never heard of that one though.
It could be about a city in Spain or this painting by Svetlana Tilits. Let me see if I can pull it up. I googled that and I just see the same painting here that we were looking at. But that painting wasn't made by Svetlana, it was Maria Farmer. So anyway, I don't know about the sea tiles. We might look into that later. Could be a fun rabbit hole. It doesn't look like there's a whole lot of information on it though. At the top it says FBI diagram, silence. It says something on the side, but I can't read that.
I think these might be the ravings of a mad and or bipolar person.
Well, absolutely. Or a person that was a victim in like the greatest, most juiciest like scandal of all time. And
Well, yeah.
just to try and live through that, it's gonna fuck with you a little bit.
Oh, definitely.
And just just to try and like put it all together in your head and like make sense of it. This painting is what that looks like.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. Did a bunch of psychedelics and drew what came to mind, it looks like.
Yeah. Yeah, if I were tripping, this looks like something that I would draw. We see another thing here. So underground, it's just like a TV with CNN. So maybe CNN. It's got some like Epstein ties. That could be fun to look into. It says Vanity Unfair. It says Fox. It says All Red Spawn, New Albany, NYAA, Hitler. Yeah, it does.
Sure, why not?
We gotta throw Hitler in there.
Hitler.
We got right here, it looks like a penis coming on some dude's face. We got mushrooms just growing everywhere. Oh, here, FBI school bus. Every picture is worth 1,000 words, right? Or whatever.
Worth a couple, that's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, this one just goes on and on. There's so much here. And that really does conclude our Epstein update. We're still waiting on the FBI to release more evidence. In the meantime, this is the kind of stuff we have to go over. And we will keep you guys updated with Epstein updates, so keep an eye on the channel for that. We got to jump into our next source here. So this is RFKJr provides an update on his mission to end skyrocketing autism and declassify Kennedy files. So you've probably seen a couple news stories about this podcast that RFK did with Tucker Carlson already, but the headlines you're seeing are like probably like RFKJr spews anti-vax claims again, this time on Tucker's show. But you really, when you see that kind of stuff, before you decide if you believe it or not, if you actually want to look into it and make your own decision, you should always go to the first-hand source here. Don't read the article to learn about it. Listen to Tucker Carlson's podcast with RFKJr to learn about it, and then make a decision from there. That's what we're going to do today. So we're obviously not going to watch this whole podcast because it's like an hour and a half long, but I do encourage you to watch the whole podcast if you want to learn more about this kind of stuff. And so what we're going to do is I just have like 3 different timestamps from like the beginning of the video, the first like 20 minutes or so. And those are like the juicy stuff where a lot of these articles are like referring to. And we're going to go into that. So let's check it out. Here's like the first little clip here.
I get opposition from proxies to the industry.
Yes.
And I think the major opposition that I feel is from the mainstream media and from Democrats, which is really, that is an interesting phenomenon because these were people I was friends with my whole life. And, you know, I have not changed and my values have not changed. And the policies that I've been advocating have not changed. But the party has just a knee-jerk reaction against anything that is Trump. And you know that, you know, President Trump's in this kind of a really paradoxical position where he not only has completely taken over the Republican Party and dictates its platform, but he's also dictating the platform for the Democratic Party.
I've noticed.
So if I remember I saw this for the first time on NAFTA. Democrats traditionally were against NAFTA, and as soon as President Trump came out against NAFTA, all the Democrats, you know, were now for NAFTA. The Democrats were the anti-war party, but as soon as he expressed his opposition to the Ukraine war, they became the war party. The Democrats traditionally were the biggest critics of the CIA and the intelligence agencies, and as soon as President Trump started complaining about the power of the intelligence agencies in Washington, they became bonded with the intelligence agencies to the extent where they had, for the first time in history, a former CIA director speaking at their convention immediately before Kamala Harris. They were the party of free speech, and they became, when President Trump started advocating for free speech and his ability to talk, the shutdowns of him on Twitter and these other really crazy efforts to suppress the speech of a former president. He became a.
But yeah, that was kind of like the first clip of the podcast that was like kind of really important to go over. And honestly, I think a lot of people agree with what RFK Jr. is saying there. But he starts by just talking about the haters. So Tucker Carlson asks him like, hey, like, who's like your biggest opposition? And he says, oh, like the mainstream media. And it's because like I partnered with Trump. That's, because the mainstream media kind of hates on Trump. RFK Jr. is in Trump's cabinet. So obviously they hate on him too. And so maybe if RFK Jr. had his cabinet position, but with a different president, people would be a little more open to even like listening to what he has to say. Because again, he talks about it here. He used to be a Democrat. He's worked with a lot of those people, like a lot of the Democrats, but now they're not friends just because he works under Trump.
Yeah, it's partisan politics. But make no mistake, when the doors are closed, they're all friends with each other. They're all good friends. It's all just a facade.
Right, yeah, it's not in the mainstream media. Then he goes on to say some fun stuff about how Trump's policies are basically old Democratic Party policies, just like anti-war, freedom of speech, more transparency with intelligence agencies. So I thought that was worth going over. Let me pull up the next clip. That's where he kind of goes into more of like this vaccine stuff. But also that first clip, I would say that is a really good description of kind of like the political dynamic in the United States right now. Basically, anything that Trump is for, the Democratic Party is just against. And like that's the parties right now because Trump's a Republican.
It's been like that ever since I was young enough to remember.
Yeah.
And it changes every 4 to 8 years depending on who's in power.
Yeah. And I would, in a perfect world, a more perfect world, I would like to see like each party just create their own issues and agendas, not have a position just because it's in opposition to the other party's position. Just don't be so polarized, I guess. So let's check out the next clip here.
The data, they looked at children who had received the hepatitis vaccine within the first 30 days of life and compared those children to children who had received the vaccine later or not at all. And they found an 135% elevated risk of autism among the vaccinated children. And it shocked them. They kept the study secret, and then they manipulated it through 5 different iterations to try to bury the link. And, we know how they did it. They got rid of all the older children, essentially, and just had younger children who were too young to be diagnosed. And they stratified the data, and they did a lot of other tricks.
So yeah, right there, he makes the claim, which actually, as far as I can tell, we looked into this a little bit. It looks to be true, but there was a study where they were trying to see if like vaccines gave you autism, and it looks like they didn't like the outcome of the study, so they kind of changed the parameters to make the studies
agree with what they wanted it to agree with.
And if you want to look into the study yourself, I have it here. So it's the one that he's talking about, at least in that clip. He talks about a couple other studies, but it's from 2001. It's called Immunization Safety Review. And they were basically just trying to figure out if this thimerosal like is safe or not to use. Like, does it give you autism? Does it give you neurodevelopment disorders? Does it attention deficit or like hyperactivity disorder, ADHD? Does it fuck with your speech? And basically, the conclusion of the study was they don't know if this thimerosal is safe. That was the conclusion of the study. A lot of people didn't like that and just kind of like suppressed this. And like they also made like other studies saying like, oh no, thimerosal is safe, to try to like bury this one. And that's what he's talking about. He's not just making random shit up, RFK. He's talking about like real science.
Yeah, and so this is like the common anti-vaxxer talking point is that the thermosil inside the vaccines, which the thermosil is just a preservative. It's usually made out of, or it was mercury based or some aluminum based, some metal based that's potentially toxic to people. And the concept is that the autism rates have been on the rise, and they're trying to link that with the vaccinations because as the time has gone on since the 80s, we have more and more vaccinations and a tighter vaccination schedule for these children where they're getting multiple of these vaccines in one doctor's office visit. And because they're getting so many, the amount of thermosil in them could cause potential disabilities to occur, which that's the whole concept of the thermosil. Yeah, it's just the thermosil is what a lot of people think is what is causing the autism or mental defects in children.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot of disagreement that if it is safe to like put in like the human body, there's like
Well, it's mostly for children. Like it's fine for older people, but when it's a young infant and you're giving them like 20 vaccine, or I don't know how many vaccines you actually give. I just know that it'll be like, 4 to 5 vaccines all wrapped up in one.
right, and it didn't used to
Giving
be like
multiple of
that.
those to a child. Right, exactly. There's a lot more vaccinations that we give to children, a lot more inoculations that we give to them now, and it's at there's a lot more that we give to them in a shorter period of time. And that's solely for convenience, not having to go to the doctor's office multiple times within a couple months just to get different vaccinations, just to spread them out. People do it out of convenience and saving money.
Yeah, so that's kind of what we're covering, but we're really like this is like only surface level stuff. I mean, you could go into all of these studies and stuff and really look at it. And it's just it honestly is a never ending rabbit hole. If you want to like try to do your own research or whatever, that's kind of the stuff you're going to have to do. If maybe your doctor tells you something and you just want to make sure for yourself, like it's going to take a while. There's, like real science and stuff.
That is one thing that you have to do, especially with our current healthcare system, is be your own advocate because doctors don't care. They don't know. They're not going to sit, at home pondering what you could have had if they can't figure it out in the first go. These people are trying to churn and burn you for money. That's really how it works. I've had to be my own advocate multiple times at the doctor's office because the doctors don't want to do their job.
It's okay to be a little skeptical. There's nothing wrong with that. Like you're looking out for yourself more than anyone. That's kind of just what it is. We have another clip here. Let's pull it up. All right, this is gonna be the last RFK Tucker Carlson interview clip that we go over.
We were told at the beginning of COVID, don't look at any data yourself. Don't do any investigation yourself. Just trust the experts. And trusting the experts is not a feature of science. It's not a feature of democracy. It's a feature of religion, and it's a feature of totalitarianism. In democracies, we have the obligation, and it's one of the burdens of citizenship, to do our own research and make our own determinations about things. Mothers, when they go shopping, they don't trust the advertising. A good mother does not trust the advertising. They don't trust what they hear. They do their own research, and it's a much harder way to live. But, that is one of the burdens of living in a democracy is that we do our own research. We make up our own minds, and that's the way it should be done. And we're going to give people gold standard science. We're going to publish our protocols.
So yeah, it was just that last clip here. It kind of relates to what we were just saying. Like it might be for your own benefit to do a little bit of your own research. It is true. Like just straight up blindly trusting the experts. Everybody makes mistakes, even experts. And what if the expert is like corrupt or like they're lying to you? Maybe they were given the wrong information that they were told was true. That's kind of what he's saying here. And I do love his point about how mothers have to do that, and they probably do it more often just because like you're reading like all these advertisements for like things that you have to like buy for your kid. You can't just trust any advertisement that says like, oh, this is the best and the safest. Obviously a company that's telling you that just wants you to buy their like product. And that could be like similar with like vaccines. It's very possible.
Look at all these larger pharmaceutical companies like Pfizer, for instance, who have had great inventions or breakthroughs in medical devices that in 10, 20 years had huge class action lawsuits because they were negligent in testing or hid some testing or didn't fully give out all the information, and people died or got very sick.
Yeah, and just like remember that you're living in the real world for a second. Every company exists to make a profit, and that does even mean like healthcare companies, like vaccine companies that makes vaccines. They're all making a profit, and that's how they stay in business as a company. So whether it comes down to like what to eat for dinner, you should be using like similar thought process for like what to put in your body or how to stay healthy. Just like understand that every company is trying to make a profit, even vaccine makers.
And they made a hell of a lot of profit.
Yeah, and if they weren't making money off of it, they wouldn't be doing it. So yeah, I guess what RFK, like another what he's saying is like we live in a great time, like things are good. We got like capitalism and democracy, but a result of that is you can't always believe like advertisements or even like trust all the experts. You got to be a little bit skeptic because everyone's just trying to get you to buy their stuff. So you have to make your own decision. Any other RFK thoughts while we're here?
So far, so good with RFK. I might be disappointed with Trump and Dan Bongino / Kash Patel or Harold and Kumar, but hopefully RFK and Tulsi. I'm very upset with Tulsi too, but hopefully RFK will be the only redeeming quality so far in the Trump administration, which I will take it. We're already trying to get food dyes out on a quicker schedule than we were already doing.
Oh yeah.
So looking into or having more studies for things that we use is never bad. You should always question the science. That's kind of the whole point of science. And you should go off of the new information that's presented to you. So it's always changing. You should always be looking just to verify. There's no reason why we shouldn't.
Yeah,
We're wasting money on bombs to kill people in Ukraine and Israel. Why can't we spend a little bit of money to just make sure the things that we're putting in other Americans are actually not harmful?
Oh, for real. Yeah, absolutely. And that reminds me of something I forgot to bring up actually. RFK in this interview states that what they're going to do in like 6 or 7 months is they're going to make a study, like a controlled study, and they're going to like really just do another study on like, do vaccines cause autism? And he said one thing they're going to do differently is they're going to replicate the study, which isn't something that's being done already, which is kind of a surprise. So they're going to do one study and they're going to do at least one other study, the same study. They're going to like replicate it. And so the results should be similar between the studies. So it's kind of like, it should be more strong, these results. They should be better to trust. They should be. We'll kind of see how that all goes. Big jump here, but our next story, the Aryan Inferno 24 years ago.
Oh,
Whoa. Big jump here. Follow along. This relates back to the Idaho shooter. Let me pull that up in case you guys are unfamiliar. On June 30th, Wess Roley, the Idaho gunman, he starts a fire on a mountain in Idaho. The firefighters show up and he starts shooting at the firefighters. It looks like we figured out kind of his motive here, but it's not confirmed. But this is, this is definitely not confirmed. Probably never will be. Although some mainstream news sources are picking this up. But it looks like he was like a racist dude, like a Nazi, like an Aryan dude. He was mad at the firefighters because 24 years ago, the firefighters, they bought the house of like a super racist Aryan Brotherhood guy. And they used it as his house as a training facility and burnt his house to the ground as a show of like, hey, we're firefighters and we're not racist. And so it looks like this shooter here, Wess Roley, was doing like a tribute to the 24th anniversary of that guy's house burning down. And he was like fighting back against the firefighters. He was getting some revenge. That's what
I don't know about any of this right
dude,
here.
well, let's look into it.
It's crazy to me, but also the whole concept of just starting a fire and shooting firefighters and killing firefighters for no reason is just so
Well, the
Crazy
reason
to me.
is because firefighters aren't racist, and this guy was, and he's mad at the firefighters.
I thought it was because they just took his house.
They took some other guy's house 24 years ago and burnt the house to the ground in like a training exercise. So it was like revenge for that. But like the reason the firefighters did that in the first place is because they're not racist, and it kind of, I'm sure, like that's why they did that. I need to pull up the comment real quick of how I first heard about this. I got to give a shout out real quick because it was actually someone that left a comment that put me onto this and kind of made me go down this rabbit hole. So yeah, it was this user here, Amanda. They left a comment, and I'll read the comment here. This is what got me looking into this. And the comment was, "This event today marks the 24th anniversary of the Aryan Inferno. The same fire department burned the compound to the ground 24 years ago today, but people are speculating, going deeper, that the sheriff is a shady dude from LA and he orchestrated this for the Aryans to take the fall." This is what we're deep diving into today. We'll take a look into the sheriff in a minute, but first, let's look at this Aryan Inferno thing. The Aryan Inferno event 24 years ago likely relates to the burning of the Aryan Nation's compound in Idaho on June 29, 2001. So the Aryan Nations was a white supremacist group, and the founder, Richard Butler, lost his property in a federal bankruptcy sale after losing a civil lawsuit, and the firefighters bought this property. The group was forced to sell the land. Local fire departments used the compound's former security house for a training exercise, and they burned it down to the ground. The act symbolized the decline of the group and community efforts against hate. The site was later planned to become a peace park. So they were like the firefighters were like trying to make a statement when they did this. Like, hey, like we're not racist. And this Idaho shooter was trying to make a statement that's like, hey, I am racist, so I don't like firefighters. That's kind of like the potential motive of this guy. That's kind of what I think happened.
Yeah, very weird that it would be 24 years later. I wonder what that civil lawsuit was about.
Probably just the dude being racist. I don't know. Yeah, we could go into that. I also, from another source, read something that was like this Idaho shooter, Wess Roley, he would like draw like Nazi signs like in his notebook at school and stuff, which is just more like potential evidence that this guy was like a hateful person. So yeah, and
being a hateful person and an edgy teen, there is a lot of overlap there.
Yeah, but I mean, it looks like this guy was an extremist. You know, he went far with it. Let's look into the sheriff, because the sheriff gets interesting too. I haven't really found a link between the sheriff and proof that the sheriff orchestrated this at all. But you read this dude's wiki, it is interesting. So let's go over it. And again, this is Wikipedia, so all this stuff might not be true. His name is Robert Brian Norris. He's a sheriff in Idaho. In February, he kind of went viral for removing someone from like a town hall meeting. You might have seen a video of that. Before becoming a sheriff, he served as a lieutenant with the Los Angeles County Sheriff Department. So that could matter here.
And he's a Mossad agent too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Check this out. Yeah. So it's crazy. Following the September 11 attacks, Norris was selected to lead a team at the newly established Joint Regional Intelligence Center to assist the United States during the War on Terror. He held a security clearance for sensitive, compartmented information and was responsible for managing personnel and resources from local, state, and federal agencies, FBI, CIA, and the U.S. Attorney's Office. While established at JRIC, Norris was selected to train in Israel with Mossad at Shin Bet. Upon his return, he was promoted to lieutenant at the LASD by former Los Angeles sheriff and convicted felon Lee Baca. After his career at the LASD and his move to North Idaho, Norris volunteered with the county search and rescue team. Okay, that's irrelevant here. But yeah, I mean, look at this guy. After 9/11, he trained with Mossad, and now he's some sheriff in Idaho. And it looks like some people don't like it.
Well, you also have to understand, though, Mossad does do a lot of our training, interrogation, military, police. They're the ones who have created all the training programs for a lot of our institutions.
Yeah, I'm not really saying he's some kind of like secret agent or something, but it's worth knowing. It's interesting to pull up. So like the sheriff of where this Idaho mountain shooter happened. The sheriff of that town or that county trained with Mossad. It just adds like another layer to this whole story. It's weird. Also, he was promoted to lieutenant after he finished that training, and the person that promoted him looks like later on got convicted of a felony of
Interesting.
Yeah, he got convicted of obstruction of justice and lying to the FBI. And he got convicted after he promoted this sheriff here. It's interesting. It's just interesting. I'm not really saying there's a conspiracy with this, but there could be. It's worth looking into. It's hard to get like a lot of information though on this. He's just a sheriff from Idaho or in Idaho. But anyway, what that YouTube comment that I showed earlier was kind of saying is like, it seems like people don't like this guy because he's kind of from out of town, and he has like done some like kind of controversial stuff in Idaho that a lot of people might not like. Like he kicked like someone out of like a town hall meeting. Maybe people didn't like his pandemic response. He said he wouldn't enforce COVID mask mandates, like stuff like that. You know, he could be seen as kind of a controversial person. Why this matters is this guy might have been the guy who turned Wess Roley, the shooter, who turned Wess into like an extremist. Like Wess is kind of like living in this area, seeing like this out of town sheriff come in, start kicking people out of like town hall meetings. And maybe Wess just got like so mad that he's like, all right, I thought about doing this forever. I'm gonna do a little homage to the Aryan Nations building that got burned down by the firefighters. That's really about it.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if there's something deeper.
There might be, yeah.
Potentially. But it could also just be a crazy person.
Yeah,
there's a lot of those going around. People are getting desperate. People are getting weird. And honestly, as we see the economy get worse for a lot of middle Americans, I wouldn't be surprised if you see more people just doing crazy shit like this.
Yeah, so I think the conspiracy that commenter was like believes in is that like this guy, the sheriff, convinced the shooter to go do that maybe. So maybe the sheriff like looks good politically. So everyone could say, wow, sheriff, you did a good job handling that situation. Like it could be something like that. He used his like Mossad intelligence training to like convince this 20-year-old guy to go shoot firefighters. You know, it could be something like that. Super interesting. I had to cover it.
Yeah, I mean, you know, hopefully there's some more information that comes out that kind of clarifies some of this, but I highly doubt it.
Yeah, well, there actually was, give me just 1 second. There actually was. So mainstream news has actually picked up parts of this story here. Let me see if I can find it. So this is the New York Post 2 days ago. Chilling coincidence of Idaho shooting sends internet sleuths into overdrive. Yup. Let me see if I can just find the juice of this article. I don't want to go through this whole article. So internet sleuths are pointing out that the deadly incident occurred 24 years to the day after the deliberate burning of the former headquarters of the far-right Aryan Nations group in Hayden Lake. Even mainstream media is like picking up that this guy might have done it because he's like racist. Let's see if they have any information we haven't really covered. Call the Aryan Nation a hate group. Yeah, I mean, that's true. We probably should have said that.
I mean, yeah, anything with Aryan, Nazis.
We don't support that.
Yeah, those
here.
are hate groups.
Yeah,
we don't support white supremacists.
A user on...
It doesn't even make sense. Like, what are you white supremacing?
Some people are just crazy. I don't know. I don't get it either. A user on X wrote, I do not think it is a coincidence that on this date in 2001, firefighters in Coeur d'Alene burned down the Aryan Nation founder's compound in a training exercise after he lost the property in a federal bankruptcy sale. The tragic current events are unfolding nearby. So yeah, that's just like another person that kind of thinks there might be this might be the motive to the shooter. Apparently Coeur d'Alene is the home of the Aryan Nation. So the shooter might have been part of the Aryan Nation. Another user said, Richard Butler, people laying stake, his compound was close by. And Richard Butler, yeah, that's the Aryan Nation guy. That's about as deep as like a real news source is going to go into it. So if you did see this article and you end up watching our video, lucky you, because you get more backstory on it. We have more stuff that we're willing to say. And so I guess that will end our little update on the Coeur d'Alene incident. Maybe in the future we'll get some more story that kind of, or some more sources that kind of confirms anything that we're saying or gives new information to it. We'll cover it then. But let's jump to our last story for today. The Diddy trial. It's over. There was 5 charges against him. He's found guilty on 2, and he was acquitted on 3. So let's just see if we can just go over that real quick so that way you know about it. Here, what to know about the trial. Diddy was acquitted of racketeering and sex trafficking charges today and was found guilty on 2 lesser charges of transportation of former girlfriends for prostitution. The verdict is seen as a victory for Combs, who was cleared for the most serious charges against him. His defense team opted not to call witnesses before arresting. The judge is yet to decide if Combs will be released pending sentencing. The defense requested that Combs be released today on a $1 million bond, subject to the conditions that he surrenders his passport and limit his travel to specific jurisdictions in California, Florida, New York, and New Jersey. Prosecutors said they will seek a 4 to 5 year prison sentence for Combs and is arguing that he is not entitled to release as the trial proved he repeatedly violated the law even when he knew he was under investigation. So that's the Diddy update. He might get out, and it looks like if he does get a sentence, it's going to be kind of a lighter sentence. Did it say? He beat the major charge, which is interesting. Oh yeah, so next step in this case is he goes to sentencing. So we'll kind of find out there. You can watch this.
Hi guys. Young Diddy, you got that walk. How are you guys? Good smiles, good smiles.
That's it. It looks like he might get about 4 to 5 years, and he potentially could have gotten over 20 years if he was guilty on all the charges. So I think he's happy with that. I think his lawyers probably see that as a win for the case. It seems like this is probably the easiest he could have gotten off, in my opinion. I would have been really surprised if he got off on just everything, if he got off scot-free. I don't know, you got any Diddy updates? I don't really go too deep with Diddy. He doesn't interest me as much as a lot of other things.
No, it's just not surprising. It's not surprising that he gets a bunch of charges dropped. Some of the most heinous things he doesn't even get charged for, and he gets 2 counts of sex trafficking. It's a joke.
Yeah,
It's
does
a
seem
softball. It's to protect other people.
it does seem kind of like a light sentence to me.
Yep.
And I really thought the trial was going to go on for a long time, maybe a whole year. But it looks like they didn't really go over everything in the case, in my opinion. And it even said one of the lawyers didn't bring any witnesses. So yeah, Diddy's defense team opted to not call witnesses before arresting. So it looks like Diddy didn't bring any witnesses, which is interesting, but it does make sense. You probably don't want a lot of these people talking on the stand about what they did on the freak-offs, but I would have loved to see that kind of stuff. So yeah, I guess that's the Diddy update. When he gets sentenced, we'll probably let you all know kind of about that. Let me spend a few minutes here. We'll sum up all of our stories just really quickly, and that will be the end of the episode. Just give me a minute. So the first thing we covered today was an Epstein update. We had a Epstein victim here saying that she saw hallucinations while she was with Epstein, and that to her it seemed like she was tripping or something, hallucinating, but at the time she wasn't aware that she was on any drugs or anything like that. Then we also brought up another source that is suing Jeffrey Epstein, that is suing the federal government kind of for not taking her claims as serious as they should have in the beginning. So because of this case, it's possible some more Epstein information gets released to the public. We'll keep an eye out for that. This lady that filed suit, her name is Maria Farmer, and this is kind of a painting that she did. And I'm guessing it's this painting is an expression of her memories of Epstein. This is kind of her trying to express how she feels about this whole Epstein situation. And what we did is we talked about the similarities in this painting compared to what this other victim of Epstein says about Epstein, where She says she felt like she was hallucinating, and like you look at this painting, it looks like a hallucination. There was a lot of comparisons between the two that we went over. We talked about RFK. He did an interview with Tucker Carlson where he kind of just says like, since I'm Team Trump, obviously everyone's anti-me as well because like mainstream media is anti-Trump. He says like he's going to be doing some more studies to see if there is a link between autism and vaccines, and they're going to do them like a little bit better than they've been done in the past. So hopefully the studies don't get manipulated to like show a preferred narrative. And then we kind of covered some studies that he does talk about where there is a little bit of truth that there has been studies that say that they're not entirely sure if vaccines cause autism or not. They don't know if this thermosol is safe in vaccines, how safe it is. He kind of talked about that. We went into it a little bit. Our next story that we did, a chilling coincidence of Idaho shooting sends internet sleuths into overdrive. That Idaho shooter that shot the firefighters basically might have been part of this like Aryan Nation. And 24 years ago, the firefighters in that town burned down an Aryan Nation building as like a show of like anti-hate. The reason he shot the firefighters, that might have been his motive. He doesn't like firefighters because he's racist, basically, is what we covered. Then we also talked about the sheriff of that county. We brought up his Mossad ties and a couple other things, so that's fun as well. And then the last thing is the Diddy update. So Diddy was only found guilty on 2 of the 5 counts, and it wasn't like any of like the major ones. It looks like he's going to get 4 to 5 years maximum, and we'll update you when he gets sentenced. Other than that, have a great night. Check out our video next Wednesday. We'll be doing another long form video just like this. We do it every Wednesday. We stream it on Twitch at 4 p.m. Eastern. If you have any stories or hot takes you want us to go over, just send us an email, leave a comment. Maybe we'll take a look at it, and have a great night.
Like, subscribe, and make sure you follow on Twitch so you can see us live.